Okay, so in this video, let us see how we can create a critical authorizations report. So in SUIM, when you come back to, let's go back to SUIM, for example. Now to click on critical authorizations and then go to critical authorizations again. Now you can create a report for critical authorizations report by including the critical authorizations that we just created in the previous video. Okay, so click on new entries and just say critical auths. Okay, you can give whatever name you want. If you're generating this report for internal auditors, you can just say internal auditors or something. Okay, so critical authorization, let's give a description. Okay, so save it. It will ask you to, put your entry into your transports, do that. And now select that node and click on critical authorizations folder on the left panel. Okay, so now go and click on new entries and select the authorization IDs that you want to be part of your critical authorizations report. So let us select and insert the reports that we created, the critical authorizations that we created. Okay. All right, so we'll do that one by one, or you can actually, if they are in sequence, the ones that you've created, you can also copy paste. Okay, now you save this. And now go back. And you can now run the report. So you can select this for critical authorizations report and select your report that you created. And then in the selection criteria, how do you want to run this? Whether you want to run it by user or by role. Let's select by user and then display valid users only and detailed analysis. Now, let us go and create, before we do this, let's open up another session and create a couple of roles and user IDs and assign these roles to them. Okay, so let's go and create a role for each of these. Okay, let's go and create this role. So we are just testing the report. Okay, that's what we're doing here. Every time you create a critical authorization doesn't mean that you have to go and create a separate role for that. Yeah, for testing purposes, you can in a development system, because all this setup needs to be done. The critical authorization setup, the combination setup needs to be done in development system and then transported. So in order to test, you could do what we are doing now in development system, but in the production system, when these settings go into production, you don't need to, to create a role or, user ID, test user IDs to validate. So keep that in mind. So we're going to create four roles, and yeah, but before we do that, we also ensure that the objects that we included in the rule set, they have the required values. Okay. And the idea is that when we run the report, the ID, user IDs that we create and the roles that we create should be shown up, should show up for those users. So while that's happening, let me pick the next one. So there is an RFC problem between some other system with this, so ignore this message. So it's generated. Now let's go and create the remaining 2 roles, 4 roles also. Oh, this one already exists. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's see whether this one, I don't think this exists, but let's see. Okay, it does not. All right, so let's go and create another, this one. Pick the transaction codes. Like I said, ignore this message. There's some kind of RFC problem between some other system here. Generate the specify and then generate values, put the values in and generate the role. All right. Now, but since let's see whether what we have for user admin, I think we already have a rule for that. Right. And let's say whether we have something for role admin. Okay, so let's say create a role for role admin for the PFCG rule set. So the role admin we wanted to have, we just use one object. So let's see whether it has 0, 1. So it has 0, 1. So, all right, now the next step, what we need to do in this whole simulation or validation of this report would be to assign these roles that we created to few user IDs. So let's create one user ID for each of the 5 roles that we created. All right. Now we have created the roles. Now let's go to SU01 and create the user ID. So let's say we already have user admin. Let's create, change and see. You have the user admin here, the role. Let's go and create, let's say the role admin, for example. Another user ID is role admin. And let's say test user, role admin. And let me create this as a service user ID, password. And let's go and select the role that we created. Okay, save it. Now let's go and create the remaining 3 user IDs for each of the roles. We'll just use the role name in the user ID also, just to make it easy to understand. Test user, password, generate the password, and then let's go and assign the role. Okay, let's do the remaining also. Create. Let's go back to 14 because I don't think I, okay, change it to service. All right, so let's create the last one that we have in our list. Okay, and all right, we are creating 2 more user IDs after this for SOD conflicts also. Okay, so we'll create two more after this. No, actually 3 more. Okay. All right, now let's create 2 user IDs, 3 user IDs actually, which says okay, so let's go and remove these 2 rows because the ID already exists. Okay, and let's put GL 14 goes against GL 11. Okay, that's the one. Let's create another one. This also exists. Okay, so let's go and create or assign the new sets of roles for this user ID, which is GL14 conflicting with GL OTC 11. Okay. And then let's see if we have third one. Let's say create, this one also exists. Okay. Create and remove these. Which goes against, let's say, Z user admin. And which conflicts with Z role admin. Okay, so we have created 3 user IDs for conflicts and then 5 user IDs for critical authorizations. Now let's go back to our report. Now click on critical authorizations here to run the critical authorizations report, and then pick your report name out of the list that you created. Okay, now we're going to see how this two functions work. Okay, so when you click on display valid users, so this report is going to exclude the IDs that have expired mainly. Okay, so click on execute. Now, depending on how many reports or critical authorizations you're calling in, the report may take some time to analyze the data and display the output for you. Yeah, this is still better than going and running, generating the reports one by one out of SUIM. It's a one-time setup unless you want to keep changing your rule set. This setup is a one-time setup and saves tons of time. So now you get a list of roles, the IDs that you created, and depending on what the critical authorizations rule set was, it will tell you which all users have that access. So let us go and filter on the user type service. Okay, and then now within this list, because still it's a long list, we need to let's filter just for saving time. Let's filter on the username that we just usernames that we created. So we created the user IDs with T dash, right? So let's filter on that and get that list. Now, if you look, the IDs that we created, we didn't create the fifth one, the PTC one. Okay, that's fine. So we have the user IDs here, the critical IDs here that we created, and then we are seeing which users have that critical authorizations here, right? Now, if you select a user ID and click on in accordance with selection, it should actually give you the role name from where that person is getting that particular authorizations. So click on the roles. Basically, the system tells you the roles that are assigned to every user on the, what are the roles assigned to the users. Let's go and click. Okay, so for some reason, So what basically we clicked on profiles. So basically it's going to display all the profiles for the roles that are assigned to those user IDs. Okay, now this is not what we wanted. So it doesn't let you select a row user ID. Anyway, so this is how you create and generate or run a critical authorizations report. Okay, in the next video, we'll see how we set up critical combinations and critical combinations report and run it, okay?